This is an SM Media production.
Hi, folks, and welcome to your latest episode of SM Media's Road to Cheltenham. I'm Scott McPike. It's a pleasure, as always, to be your host, and it's always a pleasure to be joined by from the Scottish Daily Mail, Calum McClurkin.
Hi there, yeah, all good here. Looking forward to a kind of rescheduled kind of week ahead. So yeah, it should be competitive racing.
It was a bit of a flat weekend, obviously. We did have some racing. There's a lot of horses to talk about, but we didn't get Newcastle. Most of the kind of rest of the week's been spent kind of focusing our horse is going to run, our horse is not going to run. When we do the preview, I've got a couple of things I want to ask you about certain horses going to the appropriate targets. But we do have some questions. This is one for you, Callum, first of all. Are you worried about Teahupoo potentially going straight to the stairs?
No, I think it's a very good move. I've quite liked this horse for some time, and I do feel that he maybe doesn't quite get the respect he deserves. It was a good performance to win the Hampton's Grace. Gordon Elliott believes he's best fresh, and there was just a sense after when he did get beat, whether it was kind of at Cheltenham, there was serious unfinished business there. And Gordon Elliott, you've seen at the National Hunt Chase quite often when he earmarks one this early for the festival a long way out. It's very rare that he misses. The division, yeah, there's a Springer potentially from France there. There might be one or two other, but it's the same. It's much of a muchness. And I think he looks a bit of an improved model, slightly. I think he may be a bit more mature, be a bit more versatile. He showed a decent bit of pace. He hung in, but he quickened quite well from 2 out to 1 out and got it done. So if you were going to take him on, it'd have to be a bona fide stamina horse like last year in a Sire de Berlin. But he's going to the well again. Yeah, I think it's a good move, and I just like. I think if you're on him, I think it's much better than it is for the rest of the racing outside calendar. You could easily take in a Christmas hurdle or a Galmoy again if you wanted to. So it is very festival focus minded, but there was clues in the build up that this is what they were going to do. I mean, it was definitely all out to get a Sears Hurdle crown because of what happened last year.
Yeah, that is the thing as well. Obviously, he was very unlucky in it last year, but there's kind of three things I'm looking at. I think the horse is better. This is probably the best time he will be to win a Stairs Hurdle. As I say, you mentioned about the French horse. We don't know if that form's any good, but you're counting on two things happening to oppose him. You're looking at a potential horse from maybe Britain that I don't think we've seen anywhere close to yet coming and really taking the division by storm, winning a long walk, then going on and winning the Cleve and something like that. Maybe what Paisley Park done the year he won it. Or you're looking at a potential chaser coming back to hurdles if it doesn't work out. Whereas with Teahupoo, you know what you're getting. You know that he gets the trip. You know that he's going to go there. And I still think 72. I think 72 right now is still a really good price for this horse because I don't see other than that what beats him.
Well, he's going straight there, isn't he?
Yeah.
And you've got that kind of security in your pocket already of definitely knowing. His form. Okay, he didn't win it, and it was a good opportunity to win it, but it's bang up there, and he's certainly not. He's not gone off that. If anything, it's a bit better. And the field at this stage looks pretty identical. I don't see any Springer coming from Britain at the moment. Campbell's been touted. I think a Sir Gerhard potentially coming back is more dangerous. Although I'm not totally convinced by him either overall. And maybe something like if Home by the Lead doesn't make a mistake, and he's probably favourite for the Christmas hurdle. He's about 25, 28 to 1. Now, he's probably the each way player here because he ran quite well. Okay, it's Bob Owens and Lozana here beat him, but he was making the run and he was undercooked and he was giving away £6 that day, and that was just a clear starting point. So he's actually favourite for that. He's 94 favourite for that race. 3-miler in Ireland. I don't think the Brits are too much of a factor. He made a big mistake at Cheltenham, and that kind of did for him. He did okay actually to finish that race in about 4th or 5th. He went off 7s, 8s. I can see him halving in price from 25, 28. So if and he's a stayer, so he'd be the each way. I'd be if this race was tomorrow, I'd be backing Teahupoo outright, and I'd be covering a cover on him each way, and that's it.
Yeah, and I don't see what else. Absolute notions. I don't think it's good enough. But I mean, Teahupoo, a big performance from him, and we'll talk about that later on when we cover the Hamptons Grace. Next question: Can I stay in Ireland? Are you concerned about Willie Mullins' form, particularly in big races, or is it only fair to wait until after Christmas to have those concerns? If it doesn't fire at Christmas, there's something wrong.
Yeah, but he's still operating around healthy 30%. It's just a little bit in and out. I think there's certain horses that are needing the run, and certain ones aren't. I don't think he's overly concerned. He wouldn't like seeing him Perry Pass and Galloping Des Champs being beaten.
No.
And Ballyburn, I mean, they're three, pretty highly hyped horses in different kind of leagues. They've just been a bit vulnerable to a bit of race fitness or whatever, and have maybe needed it more than he thought. But I thought there was encouragement to glean pretty much from all of those runs anyway, and I think they'll be building up to maybe bigger and better things. So, yeah, I think it's a starting point. I wouldn't be too concerned either way. What it does do is that it kind of puts more doubts in maybe pecking orders. So, I mean, like for instance, novice hurdlers, novice chasers, you might have had kind of a fair idea of who's number one at the start of the season, and how you're going to kind of map them out a little bit. It might be a bit more muddled than that. I think certain horses are a lot closer to the likes of Ballyburn and things like that than maybe people anticipated.
Next one, what horse have you been disappointed with the most so far this season?
Tully Hill. I mean, going off 1-7 and as if he's never seen a hurdle before in his life. It was that was deplorable. Even though we're not concerned about Willie Mullins' form, you'd have to be concerned about that. Him. I was a bit disappointed in Under Control on the weekend.
Yeah.
Although there might have been an excuse for that. And two other mares, Dickie Henderson's. I thought Lucia would kick on maybe a bit quicker than she has. And Marie's Rock, I thought, was poor last week. I know she was a bit fresh and buzzy, but I think that's kind of holding her back significantly, and that's probably another Steers hurdle threat that's maybe kind of out the way a little bit, because she just doesn't look capable of settling appropriately enough to really get home in a proper 3-mile race at the moment. Maybe that was freshish in the day, but they're going to drop her back to real keel, but there's signs of temperament there. I mean, she got massively worked up beforehand as well. I think she might be turning a little bit sour on the game a little bit.
Yeah, the one I had was in the Waterside. I think in these 2 runs so far, I know he won first time out at Aintree, but it was very workmanlike. It wasn't what you wanted to see. There was good vibes coming out of the yard. And then at Ascot, when Doddy the Great beat him, he just looked outpaced. I don't see. I think they had high hopes of him as a potential Grade 1 horse. I don't see that coming to the boil anymore. I don't think he's that good. Still time, but I think they would have been wanting to see more of a kind of bit of flash from him. I know the owners were very strong on him as well.
Yeah, good to see Brave Man's Game as well. Twice. But there is kind of a little bit of an excuse to that. Yeah, in fairness to them all, I don't think there's been many disappointments. I think there's a lot of divisions that are really quite quietly competitive. So yeah, I think I'd probably take an overall positive look about 80-85% of the top action that I've seen so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Final question. Wondering if you had any horses in mind for either the 2024 Grand National or even any of the other nationals this season?
Grand National wise, I think Mon Big Genius did shape quite well. He would need soft ground third in the Coral Gold Cup, but I think he would be on the radar for that at Aintree. One that I've earmarked is a wild price, actually. Might need to go up in the weights a little bit. I'm interested to see how Joseph O'Brien will campaign Bustleton.
Okay.
Even as like a 5-6-year-old, he's earmarked him for a Grand National and talked 3 or 4 times, saying that he would love to run that horse in that race. I think he could be a bit kind of like, he could be a bit like in a kind of, he can run like a bit like Vanilli in a way, you know. He does have his quirks and things like that. I think they're just kind of looking for suitable openings to get him there and tee him up. But it's hard to judge because you will need a kind of pretty. I mean, there's no guarantee that being rated in the 140s is going to get you in anymore. You would need to kind of hit 150 mark, and even then it might be quite compressed in terms of the field. So you might have 11 stone 12 to like 10 stone 10 covering them all, you know. So it's a bit like a mini Gold Cup, and but for kind of lesser horses that avoid it now a little bit. So yeah, as for the regional one, I think One Big Genius might even go to the Welsh National before that. He did look like a kind of, he will get his ground there. So whether he'll kind of leave a race there for the Grand National equivalent and things like that. Apple Away could be one for the Scottish National. I mean, she jumped quite slow. She's made to look slow by Grade Awning, who's probably pretty decent, and I think it's probably an entry kind of 3 mile Grade 1 novice horse come spring. Gard, I mean, he'll have too much class as well, so she kind of needed it a little bit more, but she looked like she needed a kind of a basic kind of flat track, and I think 4 miles might makes it. So that could be Cinder Russell's Scottish National horse down the line. It's very early days, but they would be kind of, you know, tentative pokes at it.
Got a couple of mind. I quite liked how Bill Baxter's shaped recently. I don't know if he's going to be good enough for Aintree Grand National, but if they maybe decide to go down the kind of Scottish National route, like the Grey Trexes, they might have an idea on him. Also, across the sea, I think Limerick Lace could be potential one. I would more of him as a horse for the upcoming Paddy Power chase at Leopardstown. But if he wins that, he could line up in an Irish National. So I would maybe give him a squeak. I thought Iron Bridge would shape up a lot better than he did last in Saturday. I thought he was really poor. He was probably the one in that race where I looked at and thought, this is a chance for you here, because he performed really well last season. He just looked, obviously, a couple of nonsense races, but he always looked just to be an improver, and I thought this season, could he potentially be a horse like in those famous colours that could be kind of a project for a national, but he was disappointing on Saturday. So a couple in mind. Super Survivor I quite like for the Welsh National.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, Jamie Snowden as well, marking them out, and there was really positive comments in the morning's paper about him. Anti-postwise for the Welsh National. So yeah, I would definitely keep an eye on him for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you have a question, send it over to us on social media or send it in the comments below and we'll answer it. We'll move into the recap. We're just talking about Willie Mullins been slightly out of form, and he has a 5-timer on Thursday and Thurles. We'll start with the first one. Ely de Tomp made a winning start over fences. Beat a decent field, actually. Oh My Lord was second. Aspire Tower obviously was a decent hurdler. Couple of disappointments in there, but I thought this was pretty fit. I thought it was a good start. There was a couple of mistakes, jumped a wee bit to the left, but I would say a very good start over fences.
Yeah, Paul Tyrrell said he respects fences more than hurdles. He could be a pace angle and an Arkle, and that would help Facile Vega a lot, I would think, over Marine National. Yeah, that would be my long-term view of it. I think he's more interested in a Mr. Policeman at the moment. He's a Grade 1 winner over Novice Hurdles, so yeah, he could step up big time in that from Christmas and maybe kind of shape up the race come March. Yeah, I think he'll probably run in an Arkle, and I think he could be the Dysart Dynamo of last year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it could just be similar to what they did last season, just going up, kind of him and Facile Vega going up against each other. And well, obviously, if M was to go wrong with Facile Vega, he could pick up the pieces again, like potentially Christmas, or even if like Dublin Racing Festival, if they go down that route. So yeah, I thought that was just pretty good. We'll move into the next race in Thurles, which was pretty much 4 Willie Mullins horses against French Dynamite and Farouk Delaine. It was won by Classic Gateway. It was a 2 mile 6 Bet Victor chase. Hot on Colour, I thought ran really poor. I thought I was expecting better from him. And regarding the winner, Classic Gateway, this is a kind of difficult time. Obviously, he's not a novice anymore. He's difficult to place now, but he's always going to, I think he'll always come up with a win in some type of race like that.
Again, it's usually early in the season. I mean, we've seen this with Grange Clare West the last 2 seasons as well. They're good horses in their day. They just need to back it up. That's the kind of issue you've got with him. He he was kind of forgotten about a little bit in the betting as well. Hot and Callure was found to be lame.
Yeah.
So I think it was a decent performance. Again, he's one of several that are quite hard to place, and it's hard to see him running in handicaps, but it's hard for him to kind of really pick up Grade 1. So these kind of listed chases, Grade 3s, Grade 2s, and things like that are probably right up his street at the moment. But yeah, he just needs to back it up because it went quite south last year for him.
Fun made a winning start over hurdles as well. She's into about 12, 14s for the Mayor's Novice. She was a decent bumper horse. She didn't really run a race at Cheltenham, but I think she could be quite a decent prospect over hurdles.
Another that produced a big performance last season and didn't quite back it up. She just simply refused to settle at Cheltenham. It was all a bit too much for. Like, if hurdles calms her down successful enough, it'll give her a good chance in a Mayor's Novices hurdle. I think she's got a lot of boot though, and that hill might not play to her strengths. So she might be one that's got to kind of. I think she is talented, and I think she does have enough talent to definitely be a player. But I think she has to kind of be able to settle down and maybe a couple more runs. She's one that I would look to kind of get experience into and try and harness energy and give her the best chance possible of getting up the hill. I think she can maybe race a bit too keenly for her own good.
Final Willie Mullins winner on Thursday was Daddy Longlegs for the Donnellys, 11-8 favourite. Again, this horse came with a bit of a reputation. It hasn't run since May last year, so there was a bit of interest regarding him. Backed into 11-8, won by 13 lengths, travelled really well. I think that's the best Willie Mullins novice we've seen so far.
It's the best 2 mile novice performance we've seen so far, in my opinion. I think he's a bit big for the Supreme. I thought it was good. I mean, the way he went down the hill as well, and he was still kind of looking around. It suggests there's improvement to come, and he's a sort of Almanzor. It's part of this Willie Mullins' French project that's coming into things here. I don't particularly rate the bumper former last year.
No,
he's avoided all that stuff. That's his second run in his life, and he looked fairly natural, and I thought there was enough improvement there as well. He's been a decent kind of the third horse. Has had some decent form in relation to kind of like the likes of Firefox and things like that. I think so. He smashed him even easier than that, and he's once Paul Townend gave him one squeeze, he shot down the hill, and then you're thinking he's looking around, going he might miss a second last, and he absolutely nailed it. He showed really good footwork there, and he was quite nimble when he needed to be. And yeah, I was quite impressed. I'm surprised that 14, 16 to 1 is still around at the moment.
He's favourite for the Grade 1 at
And
Christmas.
I think that's his horse for that as well. I would think.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, because he might come up against the likes of Firefox, Ali Antiques in there, but I think this was a very taking performance. On to Friday Newbury, another novice. I am desperate to get your thoughts on this. Jericho de Repine won at 4-11. Right. There was 4-1 going about. I think that was an exaggeration. He came back to sevens fairly quickly. What do you think of this?
Fair price. He's not done much there. I mean, in form wise, but what he did from the last to the line was ominously good. He does have this feel of pure class. He does look a very, very classy operator now. That in form grounds, on basic form grounds, there's not much of a case that can be made for him at the moment. But he's learned to race in behind horses, and once he's seen a bit of daylight, he could have won by 15, 20 lengths if he wanted to. He's not, but he didn't have to. So he's Nicky Henderson. He's plundered that race at the start with a lot of fancy types, and it's easy to kind of see the link. Nicky Henderson's talking an absolute clover with this horse again. It's not the first time he's done that either, but yeah, he's very good, and what backs it up is that Nicky Henderson seems to have a good crop of 2 mile novice hurdlers this year. Him and Wilmount being the top two at the moment, so he can definitely see see the appeal of it. But yeah, you've got to kind of take raw figures and raw things into account. So the hype was a bit overkill, and then the market suitably settled down, and now he's a sensible price. So £6.71 either way. Yeah, I wouldn't put anyone off either way. If you think he's a real deal, then you're entitled to kind of go in at sixes or sevens. To be honest, I think it's a decent division this year. It's already shaping up to be quite good, quite sharp at the top of the market. JP McManus has got 3 in there, right at the top. You'd be a bit mindful of that because see 2 of them going, all 3 maybe not. You have to see what Mirrors or West does and see how a Dream to Share comes back. But yeah, out the most potential wise, it's obviously there, and historically, you're thinking that the vibes are pretty good on raw form. You can make a case that he should be 20s or something like that, but you've got to price in the potential and the likely route and the way people are talking about him, and a good historic judge, target trainer that Nicky Henderson is. So I can't complain with it either way. I really like what he did from the last of the line.
Staying in Newbury in the juvenile hurdle was won by the Irish Raider Wudua for Gordon Elliott. She is roughly sitting about 16-18s for the Triumph. I thought she looked fairly good. Again, you can argue who she beat very much here. I don't think the British division, again, here apart from Burdett Road, has shown anything, but she did this fairly well.
Yeah, this was mapped out nicely. Gordon Elliott, he saw a nice listed prize and marked her out for it quite well. Yeah, I'd be amazed if she won a Triumph, but I think that maybe the Boodles down the line when all the marks going to come in, and I think she's pretty useful. I think she's probably in line with kind of like Calaconte, Nürburgring form at best, and I think she's further forward, and those two have probably got a bit more kind of upside to them in terms of inexperience. So yeah, I think she's just a very forward juvenile, and they can go prize hunting quite successfully for the next couple of months or so with them.
Moving on to the Grade 2, but John Franklin was won by Hermes Allen, making a winning start over fences. I really liked this performance. I think with Hermes Allen, just the way that this, obviously you got the horse in front that I fancied, kind of ran a bit of a weird race, but Hermes Allen was comfortable, was composed, just jumped well, and just seemed to do it nicely, and that's what you want. I wouldn't be surprised if they stayed at this trip. I don't think they'll be in a rush to go 3 miles, especially with Stay Away Faye. I think they might kind of earmark him for a kind of turners, or maybe kind of later on, maybe towards Aintree.
I'd agree. I don't think he could go up to 3 miles if they wanted to, but we Stay Away Faye there. I think Paul Nicholls is going to be inclined to try and split them. Yeah, he sounded after the race as if they'd stick to 2.5 miles. I think a better race he might have found out at that speed. I think Nickelback tried to kind of go from the front and do them a little bit and ran out of puff really, didn't he, up the straight. It wasn't a great racing behind. To me, I was a bit disappointed in Marble Sands, but Hermes Allen, he jumped well. He's had kind of the odd issue though, and is he one that would back it up come springtime? I'm not entirely convinced. So although he's kind of proved his talent and he's definitely back on the right track. For Cheltenham purposes, I'd like to see him, do it again and probably a bit of a better race. But he jumped really well, and he was getting more confident the more the race went on. So that was a good sign.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I thought it was a good performance. Into the long distance hurdle, it was a really good finish. Obviously, 2 old gunslingers going at it. Dashwell Drasher just off Paisley Park. Really good race. Obviously, 2 horses that deserve a lot of respect. In regards to Cheltenham, as we said at the start of the show, I don't think this is going to translate well.
No, well, I mean, 11, 12-year-olds, battling out like that is it's unlikely to be replicating spring. Yeah, I thought Paisley Park ran a blinder though. I mean, first time out, he travelled really well into it. He was given Drashel Drasher £6, who'd had a run under his belt, and just didn't quite get there. He's been to the long walk, 4 times and won 3 of them, third in the other one. He could win that again. I know it was kind of everyone was looking for something to come and challenge these guys, but if Paisley Park and Dashel Drasher are still holding the form and still holding sway at this level, then they need respect. And if it turns out to be a similar stairs hurdle, Paisley Park still likes it. And 66-1 for him is a bit ridiculous.
I thought that was
in
a
a
bit
way.
big, yeah.
Each way, we're talking about, but I mean, he could be like 33s or something. But I'd be inclined to say that he's more of a chance than a Dashel Drasher, who is actually 33. So I would have flipped those two around. But yeah, it's very hard to see it being relevant come springtime. And when Ireland probably have at least like 5 or 6 that are probably better at the moment. But it was a good race to watch. Good veterans and all about National Hunt racing and the way they kind of fight it out and they come back race after race after race and run consistently well to the level. And it's up for the new horses to come up there and challenge them at these ratings. If they're holding their form, which is probably about mid 150s, high 150s, being generous. And if that's enough, to race and fight out the finish and they prove that they can stay, then fair play to them. They can still be going, and both of them might have another season in them yet. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll move on to Saturday. A good novice hurdle, actually. It was won by Jinko Blue, beat Masaki by a nose. Jinko Blue, obviously, first time out, looked a bit raw, but I thought this was a really good run, actually, over 2.5. I think these are two potentially smart novices.
Yeah, I quite like the Henderson horse. I thought he's still a bit raw, and I thought the Alan King horse might be a bit too kind of streetwise for him, and that seemed to be the case, but he got outstayed on the line, and the £6 penalty for Masciato did it a little bit for him, even though I think he was maybe a bit idle in front and got a bit lonely up there running. I think they're two very good types in the horse. Paul Nicholls normally plunders that race quite successfully with Email Andy. He wasn't he wasn't quite fancied as the other two, and the market got that spot on. I think Jingle Blue again. I think more people would be talking about him if Henderson didn't have Wilmount and Jericho de Repine. So he's another decent novice hurler going forward, and so is the second. I think he's probably the best Alan King novice there as well. So I can see them both. Maybe the King horse might go to Kempton, something like that. But for better ground, I think it was an interesting race, and I think the top two are useful prospects going forward.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Let's move into the Coral Gold Cup. It was run by Jamie Snowden and Gavin Sheehan on That's All Right Gino. Beat Maller Mission. Any kind of thoughts in this race? Any horses you would take out? I thought the only horse that I would say was really disappointing. I thought Complete Unknown kind of ran a poor race.
Yeah, I got to admit, I wasn't really watching him too much, so he couldn't have made much of an impression. Maybe he wants it softer than what it was there. Maybe a bit more of a test, something like that might suit him a bit more. That's all right, Gino, the winner. To come from the back at Newbury is no mean feat sometimes, and he was ridden very coolly by Gavin Sheehan. It was a superb ride, timed it nicely. I didn't think the trip would necessarily play to his strengths, but he's improved. He's unexposed at that kind of trip now. They'll have to go up to graded company, a Cotswold Chase maybe or something like that. I don't think an £11 rise for that. I don't think that's completely insurmountable because that's his only run at that trip. So there might be more to come from him. So yeah, I wouldn't rule him out for handicaps either. Completely down the line, Maller Mission apparently lost his front two shoes. Wouldn't have helped. Does he flatter to deceive a little bit? Everyone said he was going to win a National Hunt Chase. I wasn't too sure. He was built a bit boldly and he came to grief 2 out, but that takes its toll on you up the running if you're going to be that, flamboyant, bold jumping, energetic. It was a hot pace. He did really well to kind of dig in there, but I don't think he's a dour stay. I mean, I do quite like him at a kind of around the 3 mile trip where he can use. He does have a bit of boot, and his jumping can put you under pressure. And like places like maybe Kempton, Sandown might actually maybe suit him a bit more when the fences come a bit rat-a-tat-tat, and that puts him under pressure. There's a race in him. The Grand National, stamina-wise, maybe a bit of a doubt, but it's becoming a classier race, and jumping's a kind of asset, and being a front runner is an asset usually. So you could see him maybe going that, but I'm not convinced that he doesn't win enough. There's excuses in behind, but he finds a way not to kind of not to quite do it. But at least John McConnell's getting some form now, and he has had winners subsequently. So that's a good thing. And a Hoyson Jordan, he didn't quite have the pace to go up top in the weight, and he kind of backed out of it, which is a bit understandable. Again, they need to find like something like a Denman Chase or something like that. They need to find something that's kind of it's a little less runners that he can dominate on softer ground to get him back. I don't think he's completely gone, but and yeah, that was about it, I think.
We'll move into Fairyhouse, a busy couple of days. We'll start with the beginners chase in the first race on the Saturday. 4 really nice prospects. I think one of them I really like as well for a race at Cheltenham. Corbetts Cross won, beating 3-card Bragg. You'd Monty Star and Nick Rocket in there. Some performance for Corbetts Cross. Now, again, this is a horse that we might kind of struggle to place come Cheltenham because I think he could do it all.
Yeah, I think he's a 3-miler. But personally, I would go on the Brown Advisory route for him. I think he was made to look a little bit quicker than he is because of the nature of opposition there. I mean, 3-card Bragg, Nick Rocket, Monty Star, they do look a bit like sloggers.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Nick Rocket's got a bit more class than them, but 2 of them certainly do need soft ground, and they'll just gallop all day. And Mark Walsh gave him a very good ride. Was confident out the back, went widest, and I'll just do you for a little bit of zip down the outside. I don't think he'll get away with that in a Grade 1 like a Turner's. I think he'll need to jump a bit quicker and slicker. I think the 3-mile route is probably the percentage call at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised at the end, but he does have his quirk. He did come around the outside there. What if he was in the position Nick Rocket would have been? Would he have ran out again?
And that's what
I would say probably.
Yeah,
and that's what he did enough at Bartlett. It's something. Okay, it's a bit innocuous, but it's something that's very hard to get out of punters' minds. I think it's hard enough for me. I can't go near him personally at the moment. He's got class and things, but he needs certain things to drop right. That race did. He showed that he's better than what he was for an outing. But yeah, it's hard to fully trust a horse like that at the top level, anti-post, when something like that happened last year's festival. So I'd just be mindful of it, but I wouldn't be writing him off. But I wouldn't be queuing up to back him either. And the other 3 in behind, could be National Hunt chase horses, but I do think 3-card Bragg would need it soft. I liked him for the battle for a long, long way, and he just couldn't. When the taps were turned on, he was found wanting a little bit, and I don't think that was because of the horse's detriment, but I think that was down to ground. And now that I think back in it a little bit, Nick Rocket. I did mention earlier that this could be their National Hunt horse chase, and that probably enhanced that claim a little bit for them.
I hope so.
Maybe we'll see. See quite a few people tipping him up now. Whether he's not been raced in the kind of races that
I
you'd
thought
expect.
It was a terrible ride with Town. I don't understand why I had him so deep in.
Yeah, I mean, trapped in the inner and all sorts and things like that. And I don't think Paul Town's been riding tactically that brilliantly.
Which we'll get into next.
The last week or two, which hasn't maybe made Mullins' form a little bit more in and out than usual. But in a beginner's chase like that, I would pretty much forgive anything because it was quite close. And Monty Star looked back on track as well. He looks a proper chaser, and so does 3-card Bragg, and you'd have to give those 2 chances if it comes soft. So yeah, they still finished a bit of heat. So I do wonder if they're bona fide Grade 1 horses. That's probably not, but they're probably going to be high class handicappers, and the National Hunt chase could be in the radar as well. So I'll be looking at them for that kind of race at the moment.
Yeah, one thing as well, I like how we're seeing Corbetts Cross is going up against 3-card Bragg and Nick Rocket. There's a good kind of level of depth to these beginners chases. So we're seeing that obviously in the next race as well with the novice maiden hurdle. Firefox made a winning start over hurdles, beat Ballyburn, who's obviously a well fancied horse. I fancied Firefox for this race. I thought Firefox would have just have the toe and obviously have the run under his belt. I think Ballyburn's another one who's needed the run. I really think Firefox could be one to take seriously now.
Yeah, I think they're both 2.5 milers down the line.
Yeah.
They're both very good horses. Firefox was fit from a bumper run, and the market came for him. And a jump at the second last kind of sealed it, didn't it? I mean, he winged the last two quite well when Ballyburn was maybe a little bit in the back foot. If that form's going to be completely upheld come spring, that might be slightly doubtful. I mean, I think Ballyburn probably a lot closer at least next time around with a run under his belt. It was quite attritional ground, Fairyhouse, particularly on a Sunday. On that day, yeah, I think Firefox is a very classy horse. I think they're probably both in Ballymore consideration, I would think.
Yeah, I thought that as well. I thought with Ballyburn, I just didn't understand the angle they were going down the 2 mile route. I understand it for a maiden hurdle, but they seemed to kind of change their mind. I thought again, Townend, I didn't really know what he was doing, but I think Firefox, I agree with you. I think they're both either 2.5 milers or even further. I think these are two potentially good horses. Into the bumper, I thought it was a good performance by Jalon Duderie. Won by 5 lengths for Gordon Elliott. Harry Swan, again, kind of looks to be taking over from kind of Jamie Codd as Gordon Elliott's kind of main bumper jockey. I think this is probably a nice bumper horse.
Best bumper performance of the season so far, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And I think Gordon Elliott apparently has one that they feel is better, that's as prominent in the market in Gigginstown. Colours it Romeo Coolio, I think, might be the name.
Okay.
Something like that. But yeah, I thought it was the best so far. And whether that'll hold up in March times, who knows at this stage. You have to wait. I think Willie Mullins has run anything of significance yet. So a bit like juvenile hurdlers as well and things like that. He's not he's definitely kept his powder dry in that department. So you can't really do much until he unleashes something, I'd say. But yeah, I thought it was very encouraging. He showed good pace, stamina as well. And looked like he did touch the class, and he looks like he's got a lot more to offer when he goes into a better race. So yeah, he's the best I've seen so far.
Yeah, I'd go along with that. We'll move into the Sunday in Fairyhouse. We'll start with the juvenile hurdle. It was won by Nürburgring for Joseph O'Brien, beat Calaconte by half a length. The Willie Mullins horse I thought was disappointing. I don't think that's anywhere near the quality that he's going to have kind of potentially after Christmas. But two nice kind of potential, like Calaconte, obviously you mentioned that you gave him a mention at the start of the series, and Nürburgring obviously just kind of got there. I don't think this is potentially Cheltenham form, but I think they're okay.
Yeah, I think they're about the best at the moment as well, along with Burdett Road. I thought Nürburgring did it well. Had a run previously that wasn't far away, so he was a bit under the radar for this and had good form tied in with Elliotsweir at Newbury and Woodoo. So I mean, there is that kind of solid, bar. Was a bit sticky at a few, but then it's picked it up and quite a lot from off the pace. We're winning quite well at Fairyhouse. It was a lot harder ground to get through than the going description said.
Yeah,
And Calaconte, after only being like 2 weeks, from, I know it was a bad race you won, but that was in bad ground as well. Coming out after 2 weeks, probably quick enough turnaround, up in grades, penalised without the penalty. She may have held on, and I thought there was enough to glean from there. And she did have it all her own way, but even soft leads wasn't really going to suffice around there too much on the day and on bad ground. So I thought she emerged from credit. She still might, and I think both of them will still go on to improve. So it's doubtful that it'll be Cheltenham form come spring, but I think there was plenty of promise to be gleaned from it in the interim.
Moving on to the Royal Bond, it was won by Gordon Elliott. It was a 1-2 for Gordon Elliott. It was Far and Glory won, beating King of Kingsfield. Ante, a horse we both fancied, was third. What's your takeaways for this race? I don't think it was a vintage Royal Bond.
Yeah, I think the winner's probably good. I think he needs further as well. I mean, I think he's a 2.5 mile. I think a lot of Gordon Elliott's best horses seem to be 2.5 milers at the moment, and that might push one of them, maybe a Firefox, into Supreme later down the line if it's continuing in this trend. The winner had that and Antuber. Those were the two that had most potential. It was quite significant. Jack Kennedy picked Fanglory at the end, and he was proved right. Bungled the last and picked up well, but again, it was an attritional race, and the stayer won it. he was good. King of Kingsfield, I think he'll finish second in a 0 to 100 at Ayr or a Grade 1 novice hurler. I think he's that kind of horse. It's becoming pretty obvious what he is. I just think he'll find ways to somehow outrun his form, but he'll find ways not to win races that he should win.
Yeah.
And the others weren't quite good enough in behind. Ante had quite a lot of potential. Was in a very good position. But I think the ground was intentional in Rachel Blackmore. Didn't want to kick on too soon, even though the opportunity there was. I just don't think he found as much as expected off the bridle, and I don't think he's as good as he might well have been. Clydesdale probably is a better horse. We might see that over the weekend. I think it's form that's pretty hard to come across being a major factor in spring festivals. The winner, he looks like he could be another kind of Teahupoo horse down the line. The winner to me.
Quite possibly, yeah. Drinmore was won by I Am Maximus. One again, this is a hard race to call because
staying power.
Yeah, but I thought Founder 50 ran a really good race. Like I didn't leave that race thinking Founder 50s went down. Let's be clear about it. I was really disappointed in. I don't think Sharjah's that good anymore. But I thought Founder 50 ran a good race.
Yeah, I thought. I mean, he's the one that I like, and he was the youngest in the field by a mile. I think he's got potential. And let's be clear about it. The 3-out travel absolutely fine. Went out like a light. Whether it was found out or there's an excuse, Gavin Cromwell's horses have they been catching out horses early in the season because they're more forward than you think, and then they're actually, that's a reflection of true ability. I mean, on hurdles form, you wouldn't think that's Drinmore's favourite quality stuff, even if it's a weak renewal. So he was, maybe his bubble was burst slightly. Maybe the ground didn't quite help him either, play his strengths, but he was fended off quite well. Found the 50 ran an admirable race. I just think, I think there's a potentially special performance in him. I think that angle has waned a little bit, but I do think he's a very decent horse, and he's probably the one take out of it a little bit. He just get outstayed by an Irish national winner that's rated 158 that was a novice in his last day and had to kind of take real advantage of it, and he kept pitching away and outpointed them. And he needs to go into races like Gold Cup territory now. Things like that. I mean, it's 33 to 1. He's shown. Okay, it's not the strongest Drinmore in the world. It's against novices, but he's shown pace to win a Grade 1 over 2.5 miles, even though in bad ground, and he's won an Irish national. So he seems to be a bit of a reformed character because in the past he was kind of, hence why he was a novice for so long. He was finding ways to lose, and he had his issues here, there. I think he just likes bottom ground, proper stamina tests, and that brings the best out of him, regardless of whatever. Where Founder 50 goes, it's hard to judge. Maybe fling him in the Dublin Racing Festival 2 mile 5 chase race and see there. But he certainly didn't need to go up on trips. So I think in Turner's maybe worth bringing back down to 2 miles away. He won the first day. He showed quite a bit of pace, but there was no excuses on the day. I still think he's better than he is, but he's not as good as what I thought he might well be. But 20-25 so Turner's each way. It's not too bad still.
Final horse to mention, Teahupoo obviously beating Perry Pass in the Hatton's Grace. I think obviously Teahupoo, we kind of know what we're at. And Perry Pass, what did you think? Do you give his chances less that he can kick on for here, or do you think less of him after it?
I don't think less of him. I just think he's bumped into a very good horse in his own patch and not been able to beat him. And he's ran like quite a few of Willie Burns' best horses have, and saying that he needs it. He's just blown up, hasn't he? And the winner stayed on. Every result, Fairyhouse that day went to the stair, went from something and back.
Yeah,
the horse that stayed the most tended to just go out and win. I thought there was enough to go. I mean, he showed that he'd champion hurdle pace. What he didn't show is that champion hurdle quality, because if you want to be a top champion hurdle and rival Constitution Hill, these are races that you still should be winning. regardless of where you are in kind of your education. But it's hard to assess because of the way. But I think the winner deserves a bit more credit, and maybe the second deserves a little bit because he travelled really well. He's a bit too keen at the start, and that kind of began to take its toll a little bit when Teahupoo kind of from 2 out was still plugging away and was actually quickening and getting closer and closer. And I don't think, Paul Tennant's right, he looked motionless. I think he probably knew that there wasn't much there once asked the question. And, if you aren't kind of, it should be an 85, 90% in Perry Pass should be winning. See, if you are 85, 90% in that ground, you won't get home. It doesn't matter what your opposition is too much. You will not get home to good effect, particularly if you're racing a little bit keenly and, you've got a good horse in behind you that's just, maybe making you go a little bit quicker than you want to, travelling-wise. They did run slowly. It should have suited him maybe a bit better, but Teahupoo was just more streetwise and, stronger in the finish on the day. In Perry Pass, he didn't show enough to challenge Constitution Hill down the line, but I think he can hold his own, and I can see him finishing above Stateman in a champion hurdle. I can actually see him losing to Stateman maybe in Ireland and then reversing the form over in Cheltenham with a bit more experience because of that kind of quicker, nippier old course. I think would suit him more than Stateman, who seems to be maybe a bit more of a kind of galloper that can go through the motions. Well, I think maybe Perry Pass actually has a bit more turn of foot, but it's an interesting one. I think if you were thinking that Perry Pass was the next coming, you'd undoubtedly be disappointed. But I think he's a horse that's justified his 160 rating and can progress from there. He's not going to challenge Constitution Hill on numbers, but he's a very good horse in his own right. But he's just not quite. He's not quite a superstar in a superstar division. He might even be a superstar next season when he go over fences. Who knows?
Yeah, possibly. Let's move into what's coming up this weekend. Starting Friday in Sandown, we've got a couple of Grade 2s to talk about. First of all, the Winter Novices Hurdle on Friday at Sandown. You've got a likes of Personal Ambition, South of the Border, Insurrection. This is actually quite a decent race. I think Personal Ambition obviously beat Jingle Blue. Obviously, that done that form the world of good. I think Ben Pauling could potentially have a nice one here.
Yeah, interesting that Insurrection and Personal Ambition have both had wind-ups, which suggests that there might be some sort of issue down the line. This is going to be a slog. I think South of the Border is one at the track. I think he is kind of well regarded. I don't think he's probably a Henderson top notcher, but I think he is, pretty well regarded at home. His rating's definitely up there. There was a lot of upside to his last performance. I think he's just about favourite and probably the one I would side with.
Okay, let's move into the Esher Novices Chase. It's a nice duel here. You've got Stay Away Faye against Giovinco.
Both rated 147.
I see that,
but
yeah.
Both have got 147 in very different ways. Stay Away Faye probably seasoned kind of, Albert Bartlett, whatever, Grade 1 operator over hurdles. Giovinco's kind of progressed through the ranks and ran in a handicap last time. Novice handicap, ran really well, given £21 to everything, and he's got it that way. It's an interesting race. And Stay Away Faye's got to give £3 to Giovinco as well.
Are you surprised that they're going here then going to Kempton? Stay Away Faye.
I think that was always the plan. It's whether Kempton. I mean, he does have likes of Nappers Hill, and he does have other horses that can maybe fill the void for that race. Stay Away Faye does look a bit like a kind of. This looks more suitable for him than a Keto Star at Kempton, wouldn't it? In my opinion, anyway. It's probably a dual changing man. I think it's maybe an interesting handicap project in behind. He did run quite well at the Exeter at Stay Away Faye. It's just whether I think Giovinco's probably the quicker horse, but I think Stay Away Faye's probably done a bit more and is proven and maybe might be a bit more battle hardened. So I think it's probably a sit back and watch horse. I mean, race sets, even money Stay Away Faye 74 Giovinco. I think that's probably on the balance of things pretty fair.
This has replaced the race at Haydock, hasn't it? This is a new race.
I think it's just under a new name, isn't it? The
Is it? Yeah, because it used to be. I'm pretty sure this race used to be around at Haydock, but then again, I think I like Giovinco. I don't know, like if it becomes a slog, stay away from you'd fancy all day long. But if it becomes a bit of a pace kind of battle, if Giovinco is a bit better turn of foot, I could see Giovinco being the horse here. But I think this is quite a good duel. I like to see again two horses that I think have got a promising future. I'm quite intrigued to see how this turns out. Saturday, I think we have to start with the Fighting Fifth. Constitution Hill and Shishkin have both been declared. What's your thoughts on that?
It's surprising, how could anyone have predicted this, a few weeks ago? Yeah, interesting. Constitution Hill's taking his chance. It's whether they'll leave the international hurdle behind as a result. So I do think they'll still go to Kempton Christmas. I thought they might give this a swerve, and all of a sudden people that are on 1-2 are very happy because he's now 2-9.
Yeah.
And the exchange did a hell no. It's hard enough, Ante post rather than taking 1-2 and sweating all week to see if they're going to last for 2 days. No, any horse, any price, odds on for me. Ante post is a no go area.
I didn't think both would go. I mean, obviously Shishkin, you're banking on that. I don't think he's going to win it. I don't think he'll have the pace. But even if Constitution Hill wasn't in the race, but all you're asking for is that he starts. If he starts, then that's enough, isn't it?
If he starts and he runs and shows a bit, then that's all they want and that's all they need. And the market's saying that he's out to 60-1. On old form, old class, you could say that he should be. Yeah, he could be like 4 or 5. He's a supreme winner after all, but he's getting a lot slow and obviously a bit moodier and things like that. It's just a fact-finding mission of where they're at with him. Regardless of what he does, it's they just want him to kind of show spark and get off the line a little bit. Constitution Hill, I'm surprised they're here, but it's good for racing to see these super horses coming out. I think the owner has maybe pressed Nicky Henderson into a little bit. I mean, these fluctuations and exchanges, they always happen with him because the owner thinks one thing and the trainer wants to do another, perhaps. And when you're playing at these prices, I don't see any point getting involved in races like this from a betting angle at all. I think the extra week's good for Love Envoy, softer ground and a stiffer finish at Sandown. So she could be second best. Goshen might like this, not so sleepy, sets up the pace, but again, it's probably one I'll sit back and watch.
We'll move into the Henry VIII Novices Chase. This is terrible.
A grade 1 apparently.
This JPR1 leads the market 15-8. You'd have to say if JPR1, the way he performed at Cheltenham before the last, he should have the beaten of these if he stays on his feet. I think 15-8 is a decent price considering it's a terrible race.
He's probably shown enough to be the best 2 mile graded novice chaser in Britain, despite.
I think me and you would have a chance in that division.
His faux pas at the last. I certainly wouldn't. My tipping at the rates and good as my painting in the background. It's been horrible actually, but I would find ways to get anything beaten. That's why I'm quite mindful of these short prices. Ezio is very hit and miss, but he does like high ground at Sandown. Is he genuine as a lot of people think? I'm not too sure. Petit Tonnerre shaped up okay in the race GPR. He didn't win it, but he was second. But he suggested that soft ground, a race like this, and he would come on quite a lot for that experience. And Colonel Harry, I think, Jamie Stone can do no wrong. He might be kind of that's all right. Gino kind of Mark II in the way he operates. I think his last time out effort was very good as well. So it's not red hot grade 1 stuff, but there is a little bit of depth to it, and it's an interesting little betting heat. I don't think it's a complete walk in the park for GPR1. I think this is a tougher race as well than it was the one at Cheltenham. Maybe Petit Tonnerre will get a lot closer, and the price is quite eye-catching at 12s, and I think Colonel Harry's 137. He's high up in the market, but he's quite lowly rated in these. But I do think he's got a lot of a potential. I think he's going to make GPR1 sweat for it a little bit. Again, it's another one that I'll have to sit in the fence at the moment.
Yeah, I like JPR1. I think he's the one with the most potential to be like kind of similar to, maybe not, and definitely not in the same class as Edwardstone, but maybe the one that could kick on a wee bit and potentially be the kind of the out and out best of these British novices, because it isn't a deep division at all. But I do think if there's anyone to take out, I think JPR1 if he stays on his feet. On to the Tingle Creek, 3 o'clock, the third of 3 Grade 1s at Sandown. John Bond looks very much as if he's going to be running. Yeah, he's declared. Boot Hill, Edwardstone in there. Captain Guinness, interestingly, not running. You can imagine that he is going to be very short at Ireland at Christmas.
Yeah, because El Fabiolo's not going there, is he? So I mean, that's an energy means out for the season, so that's there to be taken. It makes life easier for John Bond, doesn't it? He held Edwardstone very comfortably, and Edwardson's probably only going here because Huntington is likely to be postponed on the Sunday. He could get a bit closer on this soft ground. I mean, soft ground, look, he's acted on it fine, John Bond, but Nicky Henderson believes that he's better and better ground. But they looked like there was going to be more to come, rather than take the edge off him on his reappearance debut. You'd expect him to win this. Haddock Debo might try and steal things a little bit from the front. Can see, and interesting to see how Boot Hill runs in this grade.
Yeah.
He actually competed quite well with John Bond as a novice, and he's won a couple of decent handicaps. It's got him up to 158. So yeah, again, I am not opposed to taking on Edwardstone at any opportunity. So as a forecast, maybe look at one at a price, maybe even Boot Hill. The way he's going at the moment. Yeah, Newby Neg, I think the ground's going to be totally unsuitable for him, isn't it? So maybe Boot Hill to chase down John Bond a little bit.
Yeah, I think John Bond, Boot Hill could be a good forecast. Sunday, it's very unlikely we're getting Huntingdon, but I saw an interesting entry for the Peterborough Chase, and it was Banbridge.
Yeah, I mean, this is what Joseph O'Brien does, isn't it? I mean, he's definitely not going to get his ground, is he?
No,
So I mean, he had him and Fakir Duderi, and if it's good ground, I'd assume Banbridge would go. If it's soft ground, Fakir would go, wouldn't he? So yeah, that's the way he's going to play it. If this does go ahead, though, I think Solo might run quite well in it. The trip didn't go his way the last day, in my opinion. At 2 miles around Exeter, big weight, it just didn't quite work out in the Highland Gold Cup. I think he's a much better 2.5 miler, and in this test kind of suits, because it's not a stamina kind of test either, like a Sandown. It's quite a flat track. Huntington, it's a bit like Kempton does. It suits him quite well, and in this trip would be fine. So yeah, and Harry Cobham's already kind of joked up, so probably earmark this from quite some way out. So yeah, probably him.
Yeah, interesting. We'll move into Cork. We've got a Grade 3 novices hurdle that looks like a good Croke Parker entered in there. A couple of good Gordon Elliott horses, better days ahead. I see there, Lecky Watson, Mahon's Way. So there's some decent horses in there. 145 at Cork. We have a Grade 2 Mares Novices Chase. Zenta looks to be making her debut over fences. She looked a really nice filly last year in the juvenile division. Harmonia Maker as well. She made a good start over fences. That could be an interesting duel between these two if they both go.
Yeah, one has experience, and the Elliott horse ran really well. Harmonia Maker on debut, looked the part. This trip probably more suitable. 2 mile quick, bit of a tearaway as well. Zenta though, third triumph, and won the entry equivalent subsequently very easily. She does seem to be improving. It's in the upgrades, getting allowances as well. Yeah, you can see her making a kind of smart debut here. Normally goes to good. Like Dino Blue won this last year. Normally goes to a decent one. I would think Halkadoo Tapert is better than Harmonia Maker in terms of Gordon Elliott's. I mean, there's no chasers and things like that. But Zenta's another sleeper that could potentially shake up this division quite significantly come Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, interesting. We'll move into the Halliway Chase. We're likely going to see the return of the Arkle winner El Fabiolo. I mean, looking at who he could potentially be up against, Jungle Boogie hasn't run in 708 days now with Henry de Bromhead, which I found interesting. Phil Dawes in there. You've got obviously Muscada, Riviere de Tel, Vanilli is there as well. This is just a free hit for El Fabiolo.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot of races like this, isn't there, where, you know, the favourite is understandably very short, and you either just sit back and watch or pair them up, and I'm definitely inclined to kind of sit back and watch mode at the moment. Fildor here might be second, probably should be in ratings. Weirdest entry the whole week, must go here for Vanillier. What is the Grand National second doing here? And I thought he was out until the new year as well. I'm amazed by that. What are they trying to possibly prove or achieve here? And Muscada coming back down to a more suitable trip at 2 miles. So yeah, again, I think there's, in terms of rating wise, I think there might be quite an interest in behind to see what they do and things like that. But yeah, you'd expect this is a lovely starting point for El Fabio to go and with John Bon the same weekend, that they should both be kind of enhancing their superiority at the top of the champion chase market.
Yeah, I think that's it's obviously just watch and see what El Fabio was like. Let's move into the big point. Calum, it's been a subject that's been high on the opinion of a lot of horse racing fans over the past wee while. It is obviously affordability checks. I'm going to give the floor to you here because I haven't, I don't know if you have, I haven't, nothing's come up in my radar about it in terms of from my own point of view, but I know you've been doing a bit of coverage on it in the paper.
Yeah, well, I mean, affordability checks are looming large. For some they're already here in the form of like account restrictions and things like that. But yeah, there's just more and more trainers and owners and industry leaders really that are kind of sounding the alarm bell over this. Punters have been trying to raise the issue for quite some time. Those at the top are beginning to cotton on. And yeah, the petition passed 100,000, so that's now against affordability checks. So that's kind of that'll lead to a debate in Parliament about what direction the government are going in it. The white paper's been in the offing since 2019. It's had all sorts of different, the upheaval in government through COVID and things like that. But it's been further down the agenda. But it has got to the surface quite recently with different kind of gambling secretaries and cultural secretaries and gambling ministers and things like that. And, it's been a heavy lobbied level of legislation. So it basically says that if you lose £125 a day, then you'll have to go through a financial check. Whether they'll be frictionless or not, again, is up to Matt. The direction of travel suggests that they're definitely coming in some way, shape or form, probably summer 2024. And there is an election time coming there as well, so they'll be keen to push it through just before that. What I think the petition won't really do much in terms of changing it, but what it has to do is highlight the difference between these Wild West casino operations that are lumped in the same bracket as people who bet in sport. It's sometimes racing to me can be a bit of potluck and very frustrating things, but there is like a lot of elements to consider. It's a game of skill. It's a problem solving puzzle as well. It's a hobby. It's the second most popular spectator sport in this country. And it is a historical national pastime in its way. Throwing a dice virtually and flicking a wheel and spinning is not. It's also a lot more addictive than sports betting. You'll probably lose a lot more in a short space of time than virtuals as well. And I think everyone that's got a big making account has probably had the notion of I'm going to put like £10 a horse race, and then you're bombarded by it, like, please join our casino wing.
Yeah.
So I think what they need to do is, instead of kind of pointlessly fighting the whole industry on this, is that they've got to kind of get some sort of split or cut some sort of deal that kind of severs away the racing industry a little bit, not from betting totally, but betting from casino style operations. So split sports books and casinos, and make a kind of concrete split there. So and that matters for accounts as well. People shouldn't be using the same account on a sports book with their casino style. If you want to play the casino style, it should be separate entity to the sports book. And I think that'd be a good way to kind of tackle it. And then you can kind of formulate a little bit of a deal to protect the levy that kind of underpins the funding of the sport a little bit, because that offers you the separation of this argument, well, not being too tangled with betting. And let's be honest, betting and gambling now is becoming a bit of a kind of dirty word in society. It's becoming a bit more health hazard than hobby under some people's interpretation, and it is quite toxic. And racing's got its own PR problem as well. You do not want to be lumped in that same bracket as well. So I think they need to kind of use this petition as leverage to kind of get to some point with it, rather than kind of battering against a piece of legislation that seems to be pretty much set in stone in all wings of Parliament at the moment. So it did just use something to get something out of it. I think that's what it is. Whether it's kind of, it's maybe a bit cutting your losses like attitude, but if they can kind of push for, and the Gambling Commission needs to step up as well. They've been far too passive in the whole process. They just kind of fine companies that that do all sorts of things, and we'll just fine them, and that's it, and they still have their license and things like that. I think there should be a kind of a wing that separates casinos from sports books, and that allows racing to kind of have a bit more control over things, and it'll help them in the long term with any funding black holes.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I think it's obviously it's something that you mentioned there about, this is something that's been in the pipeline for a while, when you say because of kind of the government, they're kind of struggling at the moment with a lot of other things, Rwanda for one. It's kind of went in the back burner for them, but in terms of the punter and the bookmaking industry, it's becoming more and more of an issue, because there is more talk. You said there about 100,000. Is a debate going to make any difference? Do you know what I mean? If they're going to push it through, they're going to push it through. We've seen that before, but it's going to affect. Like we spoke a lot and recently about going to like the racetrack as well. It's not the same atmosphere. But the only thing I can think of, the only kind of side of it is, our on-field bookmakers going to be forced to this as well? Like, is that another thing?
No, it might push people back into on course.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's a whole part of a gambling paper of like making gambling fit for a digital age.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's the kind of issue in itself, is that these big online bookmakers have been making up the rules as they go along, because the legislation's been so up in the air that they've had their own kind of view and affordability checks, and I think quite a lot of people have used it out as kind of a way to block out winners rather than actually help out the people that need it.
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, money just gets directed to all these NHS projects, but it doesn't actually help the individual until they're already hit rock bottom. There's no intervention stage. Now, it was in Safer Gambling Week, where you've got your own deposit limits, your P&L tracker, everything is there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're addicted, you're going to ignore it all, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
So the powers are already there for the bookmaker to just use those powers. I mean, if someone's losing grand after grand after grand inside minute after minute after minute, the bookmaker knows if they're on their casino bet or not. They know what game they're playing. They know the algorithms are there for them to already do it. But it's been done in a way to kind of phase out the wrong type of people. Sensible gamblers are actually making money out of it. But they will help the losers eventually, but only when they've kind of had their cut of things. And I think the tools are already there for there to be a bit better of an intervention stage, rather than this kind of pretty depressing cycle of, well, if you're a responsible gambler and you do well, you win, you're blocked, and that's you out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a very vulnerable one, we'll keep taking your money until you've obviously hit rock bottom, and then we'll make it look as if that we've done something to try and protect you. But because you're addicted, we can't control what you want to do, and it's not up to us to kind of assess what your loss is in the intervention stage. So I mean, and Gambling Commission said, you've been a bit naughty there, you've been fined. That money will go into a massive pool, into a health clinic, these gambling clinics, NHS, and that individual will go there, rather than having these little tools, Safe and Gambling Week, that the bookmaker can actually enforce right there, right now, and even prevent the individual from even going to these clinics. So the fight, I mean, it's just this kind of circle of waste. It's a bit like, why would you help the chase of the treatment when if you've got the cure there, then but you can actually make money out of treating people. who have this disease. Well, why we actually look at the kind of the cure aspect of it and cut out the middleman in a way. So yeah, I think there's better ways of things being regulated as well, but I think you'd see a lot more signs of addiction in the casino world than the sportsbook world, and they'd be much better flagged up if they were separated.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you've covered that well again. I think it's obviously something that's going to raise its head more and more as we go into next year. We'll move into our anti-post selections. Right, Callum, we promised it. We promised we would have a pick for this week's episode. I've got one in the National Hunt Chase, but I'll give the floor to you. Where is your pick coming from?
Day one as well, first race. Daddy Longlegs 14-1
Brilliant.
for the Supreme Novices Hurdle.
Very good.
I just think it's a bit big. Willie Mullins ran 4 in this last year. Didn't win, but second, third, fourth, sixth, I think, something like that. Second, third, fifth, and sixth. 3 of them were shorter than what they were on Divers, was 25s. So I think 14s for a debut is as promising as that was. I think, as we alluded to, I think he'll go to Christmas. I think he's got the best chance here. I think he can beat quite a few that are shaping up to be 2.5 milers. And I think he could win this quite well. And then, and like Appreciate It did, he could maybe go into Irish Dublin Racing Festival and then Cheltenham. I do think he's a 2-miler. I mean, I can't see him not run the Supreme. The top 3 are all GP owned. Are they all going to go? I think they'll split one of them up. And I think the dangers are the Henderson pair of Willmount and Jericho Durepini at the moment. But I think Willmount runs the weekend at Newbury. Kind of another popular route for Henderson of success. But I think Daddy Longlegs just beat more, did it more impressively and worked less hard than Willmount did. And in the Donnellys, probably with a more fashionable owner as well at this stage of the season. So yeah, and I think it was kind of caught under the radar because it was Thursday Clonmel. But I mean, he does have winners that pop up in unfashionable places that can go to the top level. So I thought there was plenty to like about it, and on form, I think he should be single figures, but he just doesn't quite have that hype reputation that the others have yet. And I think he's done enough form wise there, and that was a striking performance. And Paul Townend afterwards was absolutely waxing lyrical about him. You know, he kind of gave the game away a little bit. See, if you go to a Willie Mullins stable too, there's 2 lines about this fella.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That could be a very good sign that they might have let the cat out of the bag. I think he's better than what connections have kind of cottoned on a little bit. Yeah, I think he's worth a poke. I think he should be in the 8s bracket with the players. We haven't seen Mirazur West yet. And, yeah, he could be very special, but you're dealing with Coods at the top of the market. Well, I think he's showing a little bit more, and I think 14's just in my upper level of each wee bracket for anti-post stuff. So yeah, 14-1 for the Supreme.
Very good. So you're on Daddy Longlegs for the Supreme. I'm sticking with Willie Mullins. I kind of thought about putting this as my lucky 15 at the start of the season, but I wanted to see how he ran. I didn't think he would come in too much for this race. Obviously, the only reason he would go if he blew everything out of the water and went down the 3-mile route. But I do think he's got a lot of staying ability. I'm going to go for Nick Rocket. It was 33s when I had it written down, and I think he get tipped up and up in the ante, and I think he's went down to best I can find here is 22-1 for National Hunt Chase. I think obviously Willie will have maybe 3 or 4 for this division. Like Manila Kakuna can still come back out. Fact to File looks a stayer. I think Nick Rocket Tamiro looks the one I would say right now would be the one I would like the most for this. I just think he looks as if he's got the class. He reminds me a bit of Gaillard de Menil, that I think he could potentially, if it was like for a Drinmore, like with I Am Maximus as well, I think he's got a bit of toe, but he's also got the ability to stay on and on as well by the looks of it. I just think this horse has really kicked on. Like, do you know what I mean? He's been very progressive over the past year, and I think this could be the mark. Now, interesting to see what they do with him at Christmas, if they give him a run at all, if they put him in a beginner's chase, maybe over 3 miles or something like that, or whatever. But I just think 22-1 is a big big price. I think there's been a few decent kind of staying performances. Like you've liked Salvador Sigi, Favori Deschamps do, I think could be one as well. But I just think Nick Rocket 22-1. I think big price. Have a wee punt on the national country. It's always like to have a Mullins horse, and it's worked well the past couple of years. So I'll give it another go.
Yeah, I mean, he's got options there, hasn't he? The thing is, though, I mean, he probably get 4 or 5 possible contenders for this, and he's one. Well, you know, it is going to be the one. You know, you have to find the one for this because he's only going to run the one.
Yeah.
I think he's probably the thing is in the direction of travel suggests he is, and I think connections a factor file. I think they would have to go there if they felt it was patently too slow.
Yeah.
Still up in the air. In fact, Nick Nog hasn't won yet. You know, you can actually put him in any 3. You need to win a 3-mile race to qualify. So I mean that would probably we'll need to run a certain amount of them, a certain time to be there. I think he'd probably do that. So he's one that you know he's going to get an extra run for experience purposes anyway to win. So that's going to help him in the qualification aspect of it. And yeah, he might have a touch. If it comes up better ground, and he might have a bit touch more class, and some of these that I mentioned, that a few of them probably want it soft already for that kind of race if you're earmarking them out. So yeah, north of 20s, I think for him at this stage would be definitely more than fair. Yeah, it's just quite a lot of that is up in the air, but it's the same with every division. You've got to take a chance at something.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've got a pick on the board. We'll have another one maybe before the Christmas period, just to kind of give us a something to play with. But not a very interesting show as always, Calum. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.
Yep, no worries. We'll back to the old painting and
enjoy
and
that.
Then,
That looks good.
Watch the racing on the weekend, but the racing will be a lot better.
Yeah, very good. Thanks very much, everyone tuned in, folks. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels. Thanks, folks.